Mhm.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Giving everyone a second here to hop in. Thank you all for joining us. For the sake of time, I am actually going to have us kind of jump right in, and I'm sure we'll have a few more folks kind of trickle in as we move forward. Just a quick note, this meeting is being recorded, so I can share it with anybody that wasn't able to join us today. So just keep that in mind. If you want to keep your camera off, that's really fine, but would love to see faces if you're comfortable. So very quick introductions before we really jump into the content here today. Thank you all for joining us. This is our Minnesota Cup Ventures as a Force for Good session, where we are going to focus on really the Impact Ventures division of Minnesota Cup and how we can empower and equip you all to best apply within that division with your social ventures. My name is Kailin Oliver. I am the director of Minnesota Cup, and I'm actually going to have Samantha introduce herself as well, as she and Dan are kind of helping lead the second half of this session.
Yes, Samantha Silker. I'm the Director of Operations at the University of Minnesota Center for Integrative Leadership. We'll speak more about the center as we get through the session, but just to preview, we're a university-wide center that really is part of 5 colleges at the University of Minnesota, the Carlson School of Management, the Humphrey School of Public Affairs, the Law School, Public Health, and the College of Education and Human Development. And that really speaks to our focus, which is cross-sector leadership and collaboration. So more to come on that, but excited to be here with all of you.
So what we're going to do today is I'm going to give a little bit of background and some context around Minnesota Cup and what the application looks like, what the program looks like. And then Samantha and Dan are going to actually provide you with some tools and kind of concepts that they use to help best equip you for your application and really how you present an idea that is more social focused for a competition like this. So I'm going to go ahead, and if it works, I will share my screen here. Amazing. Can I get just a quick thumbs up or a head nod that folks can see my screen?
That looks good.
Perfect. Let's see if I can. All right, here we go. Perfect. Okay, so as I said, this is our Minnesota Cup info session called Ventures as a Force for Good. So I'm going to start with my background on Minnesota Cup. Min Cup is the largest statewide startup competition in the nation. We are based at the University of Minnesota within the Home Center for Entrepreneurship, but this is a program that is open across the entire state of Minnesota, supporting early stage entrepreneurs. Really at the core of what we do is we are a startup competition. So we are here to help folks with early stage ideas, startups that are really just trying to get to that launching phase and that scaling phase, get the support that they need to be able to do so. So we do that with a couple of really core things, and that is seed funding is one of them. I'll talk about what that means, what we offer, but at the end of the day, each competition, we give away about $400,000 in non-dilutive, which means no strings attached, no equity taken, seed funding. We also have a really great mentorship program through this competition where we take the top 90 teams and we pair them with expert mentors from the community to really provide some of that expertise that you might need for any gaps on your team. And also, this is a really great opportunity for some amazing networking, getting your name out there, especially with some exposure and publicity as you're early stage and launching your product or service. And also getting you some of those connections that you're going to need later on, whether that's for a banker and an accountant or an investor that might be a partner later on, or even customers that want to know about what you're doing. We're just here to open some of those doors for you. A little bit of background about Minnesota Cup. This is our 22nd season. So we started back in 2005. Since 2005, we've been able to support around 30,000 of Minnesota's entrepreneurs and innovators across the state. Our program has given away or awarded about $6.2 million in that non-dilutive cash prizes. But the cooler part of the story, I think, is that the folks that have come through this program with their ideas and their startups have gone on to raise over $1.1 billion to continue driving their company forward and also kind of powering the Minnesota economy, which is really exciting. A couple of really fun standout companies have come through here. We are an industry agnostic program, which I'll talk about in a second, but we see anything from a high-tech company to a medical device company. a CPG company, Johnny Pops, you probably recognize from the shelves of your stores, to a company like Civic Eagle that came through our Impact Ventures division that is a little bit more socially driven. So really looking across the entire, across sectors here with the support that we're providing. Okay, this is the core of my presentation, and that is, how does this program work? So the very first thing is you apply. So right now we have applications open. They're open through April 3rd. This is a completely free application. I'll talk about what's on it in a second, but really what I want to make sure you know is that there are 2 criteria to apply. You need to be Minnesota based, and you need to have less than $1 million in annual revenue. This means that most folks here will probably qualify, especially if you're more of the 501c3 traditional nonprofit, but we are really looking at those early stage companies across all those sectors. So what is actually on the application? There are really 3 core pieces of this Minnesota Cup application. The first one is opportunity. When you're talking about opportunity, really what we're looking for is kind of 2 core things. One is, what's your market opportunity? How large is the customer segment that you are looking to target with your product or service? The people especially for this division, the number of people that you're able to impact with the work that you're doing is really key here. And the other half of that opportunity score is, how unique and innovative is the product or service that you're bringing to the market? How is it filling a need that either is not filled currently or has not been filled properly? How are you doing something that's kind of better, faster, stronger, more efficient, or more effective than what already exists in the market today? And when we're looking at our scoring for evaluating these applications, the opportunity is weighted the highest. So that's 50% of your overall score for the program when the judges review. The second piece, more the nitty gritty details. We're looking at the plan. This is this is a 25% of your score. This is, how are you actually going to take this really amazing opportunity you've identified and execute on it? What are all of the strategies, whether it's sales channels, a revenue model, if you have an earned revenue model, and whatever else you need to actually make this happen and execute on it. More of the business plan aspect of your work. And then the last 25% is the progress. This looks really different for all of our applicants, especially since we are looking at early stage companies. So progress can mean a lot of different things. There's a couple guiding questions and prompts within the application for this, but really we're looking for customer validation. Have you gone out to make sure that this is something that people are looking for, that people are interested in? You found kind of that product market fit, and you're making progress, whether that's a quick beta test that you've been able to run, an MVP, whatever that looks like for you. And we want to just hear about what you've done so far, and then also kind of what's next. So this is a great opportunity to talk about what the future holds and what you're hoping to do next as you move forward with your venture. All right, so what we do for this competition to make it a little bit more relevant for folks is that we actually have created what I like to call 9 mini competitions within the Minnesota Cup. So when you apply, one of the first questions you'll have to answer is which division you would like to compete in. What I am assuming is most of you will fit in our Impact Ventures division. But essentially what each of these divisions are industry specific, except for our student, which is for undergrad and graduate students, and youth, which is 18 and under. You'll notice that all of these kind of have a specific industry behind them. And what we're able to do here is, on one hand, when you apply within a specific division that fits your company, you're competing against like-minded companies. This means that we're not having a popsicle company compete against a medical device company, which kind of helps it not be apples to oranges. The other thing that we're able to do is that all of our divisions have 10 to 15 volunteer judges that are actually reviewing all of the materials and making the selections as we go through the program. And all of these judges are filtered into specific divisions where their background is most relevant, which means that the feedback that you are getting is really going to be the most targeted and personalized feedback that you can get from folks that really understand, and your application is being evaluated by people that understand the industry and the background behind it. All right, so I just want to talk a second about the Impact Ventures division. So this division is really meant to support social entrepreneurs in Minnesota. The core of knowing if you fit here is your primary purpose has to be a social mission. So you can be a nonprofit, you can be a for-profit. There's no specific eligibility requirements around that. But if your organization's really overall aim is to have an impact on some type of critical challenge facing our society, this can be education, sustainability, health, economic and social equity, any of those things, then this is a division that's really meant for you. A couple of great examples from the past couple years. Santos Health was a division winner back in 2023, and they were helping create more of a nested type of support system for folks that were going through cancer treatment. So being able to connect doctors, other support organizations like food access, housing access, all of those other kind of social determinants of health, and the patients in this really nest of support system to really make sure that that treatment goes beyond just the hospital. Another great example, Nashki Native Games was our 2024 division winner for this division. And they were helping to create really both traditional and more modern games in classrooms to help with the Ojibwe language decline. So making sure that they're getting into classrooms to help students get exposed to that culture and that language through gameplay. And then our most recent division winner, the Commons, is an organization that is actually supporting schools and students who are continuously being distracted by phones. So rather than using some of those kind of lock pouches that have been implemented in some of the schools to prevent students from using phones, they actually created kind of an airplane mode so that when students get on campus, a couple of the most distracting applications on their phone are actually disabled. So they can't go on TikTok or Instagram or play any of those games, but they still have their phones for contact, for calculator, for any learning applications with them at all times to help with a more effective way of helping students focus in the classroom. So very clear kind of spread of types of examples coming through this division, but all of those really have at the center of what they're doing some sort of social mission, which is a great or the most important piece of what we're doing with this division here. Okay, a really now quick run through of what actually happens after you apply. So once you apply, applications are due April 3rd. By May 18th, you'll hear back from us. Our judges go through, they spend a couple weeks reviewing all the applications. And then we are going to actually select the top 10 companies for each division. So 90 companies total, 10 in the impact ventures division that really stand out. And those folks will go on to be our semifinalists. But before I talk about what that means, I want to highlight that every single application that comes through this program, we really prioritize that everybody gets feedback. So even if you do not make it into that top 10 selection, then you're still going to get some really great feedback from our judges and from our team on the application that you submit to either help you move forward as you continue with your venture, or maybe it's something that you can use if you decide to reapply to Minnesota Cup next year. All right, so those 10 companies that are selected in this division and 90 overall, we call them our semifinalists. So there are a couple of things that the semifinalists are getting as they go through kind of the core of our program over the summer. The first is mentorship. All 90 of those teams get paired with 2 expert mentors from our community. You have the chance to really tell us what type of support you are looking for, whether it's industry specific, expertise specific, and really tell us who you would most like to be paired with so that we can match you accordingly to provide support. We also have a couple education sessions, whether it's pitching or just kind of general judge support as you go through the rest of the competition to best equip you to do well as you follow through both on the business side, but also through Minnesota Cup. A lot of really great opportunities for pitching in front of a public audience, for getting connected to some of those networks that maybe folks don't have access to if they don't have a business background, making sure that we're opening those doors for you. And then the last thing is, as you are going through the program as a semifinalist, you're working with your mentors to develop what we call your round 2 materials. This is where we support you in developing a formal pitch deck, an executive summary of your business plan, and a 1-minute marketing video. All of these things are used by the judges to narrow down our semifinalists to for the next round, but also they are items that we hope you're working on developing anyway, and we want to make sure you are developing things that are going to support you after the competition outside of Minnesota Cup as well. All right, now this is the thing that everybody gets really excited about. It's our carrot on the stick, and that's the funding. So just a quick breakdown of what that $400,000 that we give away every year looks like. Each of our 9 divisions is going to come out with 1 winner who emerges at the top. Each of those winners is going to take home $25,000. And then they have a chance to compete across divisions. All 9 division winners compete against each other for our overall competition grand prize, which is another $50,000 on top of that 25. So that's the first place overall. Then the second place overall gets another $15,000. And then we have some really exciting kind of dedicated prizes that add up to about $125,000 as well. So overall, the $400,000 really gets split up amongst about 20 to 25 folks every year, but still a very exciting opportunity here. All right, and I'll close with the just kind of general call for applications. We'll send the link in the chat. Again, I really want to emphasize this is a completely free application. There's really no risk in applying. It's pretty simple. It's really no more than about 1,500 words total. You have a 500-word limit for each of those kind of categories I talked about. And a really great opportunity to both take some of those thoughts that maybe are more in your brain if you're at the earlier stage and put them pen to paper, really work through some of those questions that you're going to have to answer anyway for your business plan and your business model. And also you're going to get feedback on it. So really great opportunity to get some more eyes and some feedback on what the work that you're doing as you continue to move forward. So definitely encourage everybody to take a look at the application and apply. You have until April 3rd. But I'm actually going to stop sharing now because I want to make sure that we kind of have some time to talk about what are the resources that exist to help you frame for this application process, which is where Samantha and Dan are going to come in and give us a little bit of context about some of the resources that they have used at CIL. So I will pass it over to you two, and then we'll have time for questions from everybody at the end. But feel free to throw them in the chat too.
Thank you very much, Kailin. I'm going to get our slide share, and then I'll allow my colleague Dan an opportunity to introduce himself as we start talking about the Center for Integrative Leadership. All right.
Yeah.
Dan, Kailin, is this coming up on our screen okay?
It is.
Yes.
All right. Perfect.
Thanks, Samantha, and thank you, Kailin, for the kickoff. My name is Dan Forbes. I'm a faculty member at the Carlson School and also an academic co-director of the Center for Integrative Leadership. And, one of the motivations for today's webinar is through conversations with folks at the Minnesota Cup. Samantha and I and others concluded that there are probably folks out there who are familiar with the Minnesota Cup, but are not familiar with the Center for Integrative Leadership, and vice versa. There are probably people who are familiar with some of the programming that we offer at the Center for Integrative Leadership, but who have never thought about considering the Minnesota Cup or applying to the Minnesota Cup. And so we wanted to take some time today to familiarize you with one or both of those, if particularly maybe the side of the fence that you're less familiar with. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more right now about the Center for Integrative Leadership and what our mission is and what our offerings are. The Center for Integrative Leadership, as Samantha mentioned earlier, is a university-wide center. It's now in its 20th year. And I'm based at the Carlson School. My counterpart, Kathy Quick, is based at the Humphrey School. Samantha has an office in the Humphrey School, but really we represent a collaboration among 5 different professional schools at the University of Minnesota: the Humphrey School, the Carlson School, College of Education and Human Development, School of Public Health, and also the Law School. And the motivation for this center is really based on the recognition that there are many problems in society today that don't fit neatly in any one discipline or any one sector of society, either the for-profit, nonprofit, or public sector. And yet, our educational programs are somewhat siloed in the way that we address these problems. People go to business school, or they go to public policy school, or they go to law school. And there's a tendency just historically to focus on activities in a particular sector. And as a consequence, unfortunately, to lose sight of the interconnectedness of those sectors and of the ways in which trying to advance an initiative in any domain often requires you to interact with people in other sectors and organizations across sectors, across those sectoral boundaries. So CIL, Center for Integrative Leadership, is really about the development of skills related to cross-sector collaboration. We want Minnesotans, people across the United States really, but we focus on Minnesota. We want Minnesotans to have the skills that they need to engage in cross-sector collaboration. And this is true for people in a variety of lines of work, but it's also especially relevant to people who are trying to create new ventures. And I think that's an insight that's sometimes lost when we think about high growth ventures that are exclusively business focused. But really, if you look at a lot of emerging ventures in a lot of different domains, in areas like healthcare, in areas like clean tech, food, ag, and bev, which is food, agriculture, and beverages, which is another area that Kailin mentioned has a division within the Minnesota Cup, as well as education. Those are four other divisions, quite apart from the impact division. Those are four other divisions where you may be developing a venture and you're likely to be interacting extensively with not only other entities in the private sector, but also nonprofit and public sector organizations. If you're an emerging med device company, for example, you're going to need FDA approval at some point for your product to ensure that it's safe and efficacious. Well, that takes you out of the private sector right there, and that requires you to be interacting extensively with the public sector. There's a different skill set associated with reaching across those sectoral boundaries. And so at CIL, we've put together some programming, which Samantha is going to tell you more about in a moment, to help people cultivate those skills and to build capacity across the state so that people are better able to move across sectoral boundaries. One of the tools that we have developed as one of our offerings is something called the minimum viable benefit process. And since this is a webinar related to the Minnesota Cup, there may be some people on the call who are familiar with the minimum viable product, which is a concept that's very popular in entrepreneurship circles. We, as part of the Center for Integrative Leadership, put together several of us affiliated with the center put together a concept called the minimum viable benefit, which really takes the MVP concept and adapts it to impact-oriented initiatives, such as those that might qualify, might be appropriate to enter into the Minnesota Cup. It builds on a lot of the same logic. It involves starting small. It involves learning from feedback. And really, as Kailin mentioned, whereas the minimum viable product emphasizes product market fit, we emphasize some similar contexts having to do with making sure that a concept works at a small scale before you invest in scaling the concept beyond that. So this is an example of one tool that we've developed at the center. And beyond this tool, we have some programs, some of which are for people within the university, but others of which are available for people who aren't enrolled in any degree programs at the university. And Samantha is going to tell you a little bit more about those.
Thank you, Dan. And I just put a few links in the chat, both to our website as well as the article that the minimum viable benefit process is articulated more about. And so those of you might be interested in reading that article and learning a little bit more as well. To go off of what Dan kind of teed up for me, one thing I wanted to speak about is the Minnesota Young American Leaders Program. Now, this program is already selected for 2026, so our next cohort will be in 2027. But many of you all may find this interesting based on kind of the work that you're all doing, especially within a social impact venture space. And so you can kind of see on the screen here, I'm going to start actually on the right-hand side that it's a program that really brings together statewide participation across really 6 of the kind of largest economic hubs of the state of Minnesota, obviously Minneapolis, St. Paul, but then you see other large cities there. And so leaders from each of these communities, it happens once a year, and it's really about convening these leaders from across the state that are coming from across sectors. as well. And so nonprofit, government, for-profit, and really individuals who are committed to working across sectors for community prosperity and working on those complex problems and challenges. And so many of the times it's individuals, whether they have an idea themselves and they're submitting to the Minnesota Cup, or they're perhaps might not be someone who's developing an organization or a venture, but already working for one and figuring out different skills and capacities and tools to do that. And so we'll put the link to the Minnesota Young American program, Minnesota Young American Leaders program, excuse me, in the chat in a moment, but something for you all that you might be interested in to look forward more to. And then the other piece that I'll really talk about, that more information can be found on our website, is there's a number of opportunities beyond that program that we offer for cross-sector leadership education. And so kind of have it put it into 4 different buckets here. So one is a course. Now this is offered to both enrolled and non-degree seeking students at the university. It's offered each fall. And so obviously that does cost money. There are credits associated with that. But it's I think a 13 to 14 week session or course that really kind of deep dives into cross-sector leadership, or you might hear that many different ways: integrative leadership, shared leadership, boundary spanning, depending on what industry or discipline you've been trained in. People kind of use different words to talk about really solving those complex grand challenges. Also kind of associated off of that, we have a minor as well at the university. Often we see that right with degree-seeking students. For those of you who may not be degree-seeking students currently enrolled at the university, we offer different workshops as well. And so there's a 2-hour workshop offered through the graduate school in which you do not need to be an enrolled student. We see professionals, individuals from across the state enroll in that. It's really opportunity just to get more insights and in ways that we think about working sectorally, and some of the main skills that we think about how that work can provide. One being a necessity to solve a lot of these complex challenges, and also a tool for resilience as we think about needing to take different ways to solve many of these ever-evolving challenges. And then the last one that I'll highlight is we offer a number of different workshops, both tailored to different organizations and different topics too. And so if that's something that you individually want to see something taught or focused on, or perhaps an organization that you're working with, it might be of value in having us teach a workshop. That's something that we do as well. And I think that is the last of my slides, so not to go too deep into what we offer, but just a little bit of a taste there. So I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll get those links in the chat and pass it over back to Kailin.
Same. Thank you both. That was wonderful. All right. Well, that's kind of the core of what we had to present today for our content. But I do want to just give everyone a chance, if you have questions, whether it's about CIL or Minnesota Cup, feel free to throw it in the chat if you'd like, or come off mute if you have any questions. Just I want to give a chance for that. Maybe. All right. Is there a difference in competitiveness between this category versus others like high tech? So all the divisions are a little bit different. The rule of thumb is the general division is our probably most competitive, just because we get the most applications in it. So if you can find a way out of the general division, I highly recommend that and finding a different fit. But the Impact Ventures division is definitely one of our larger ones. So we typically see probably at least 100 applications come through that division every year, which I think is a cool thing for Minnesota. But it's really, I mean, the number of applications per division totally vary. High tech, we probably see 60 to 70 at least. This is a program that's been around a while, so we definitely, it's pretty competitive. But like I said, no harm in applying, so definitely encourage that. And then, yeah, I think I answered that, Charo, too. So if you think, I mean, it's totally the division fit that you find is completely up to you. If we see your application and we read it before we send them to the judges and think that maybe you should be fitting somewhere else, we'll shoot you an email and share our recommendation, but we would not move you without your approval. So ultimately it's your choice, which division you feel like is the best fit, even if you are social minded, but then you're also doing, some work in like the high tech industry too. The one caveat to that is if you are a true 501c3, like you're a true nonprofit, I do highly, highly recommend that you apply within the Impact Ventures division. We would probably recommend that if we saw that application come through in a different division, just because our judges are best equipped to support that type of work in this division. Any other questions? Okay.
I just want to sort of build on something that
Yeah.
Kailin mentioned earlier. The prize money is what gets the most press attention every year, and there's an event in September that you might have seen. Sometimes there's clips of it on TV, and that's where we give away. The prize, the bulk of the prize money is on that last day of finalist competition. But really, the prize money, if you talk to the people who've been involved in this competition for many years, all the way back to its founding, the prize money is almost sort of icing on the cake. This is meant to be developmental for ventures in Minnesota. It's meant to build the venturing community here in Minnesota. And so the feedback that people receive, the mentoring people receive, and the connections that people make in the course of entering the competition is almost 9/10 of what the competition is about. The prize money is great and it boosts a limited number of ventures each year. But I'd say the big impact of the Minnesota Cup, having watched it for many years now, is that developmental support. And the other thing that Kailin mentioned that I just wanted to sort of underscore is people come back. You don't necessarily have to win it all in your first year. You can win, or you can enter in your first year, receive some of that developmental feedback, and then come back in a subsequent year. My sense is that many of the people who win in their divisions or even across division prizes, those are ventures that are not on their first entry. They've tried this a few times and they're leveraging the feedback that they've received.
Well, yeah, thank you, Dan, for elaborating on that. I see, Deborah, a question from you. Do we have to be registered with the state as a 501c3 or LLC, et cetera? You do not. There is no kind of minimum eligibility for applying. You can truly just have an idea on the back of a napkin, is what we like to say. So no need to be registered. That is a-okay if you are not yet. Is this program for medical tech education divisions? Ooh, Crystal, if you want to provide more information here, feel free to unmute. Otherwise, maybe send me an email and I can probably help direct you a little bit better in terms of what division might be the best fit, with a little more context.
Yeah, and I'd say we've seen all kinds of companies come through. So it's absolutely possible that the cup might make sense for you, Crystal. The general division is always, an option if you feel like some of the existing divisions don't work. But as Kailin said, there may be some circumstances specific to your company that she can help you sort through.
Yeah, absolutely. And Crystal, I just sent the kind of hello MinCup email in the chat earlier. So if anybody has any questions or wants to get a little bit more support offline, feel free to reach out to us that way. Okay. We'll give it just one more second for any other questions. Amazing. All right. Well, you have plenty of links in the chat and support, so please feel free to reach out to any of us if you need. Thank you, Samantha. If you need any support or have any questions about any of these programs. But otherwise, thank you all for taking a little bit of time today, and I wish you all the best of luck, whether it's with Minnesota Cup or another program or whatever you end up doing. Excited to see all of you interested in that social venture space. So thank you for the work that you do. And thank you, Dan and Samantha, for taking the time.
Thanks for coming today, everyone.
Yes, thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.